a second session that's on review of literature, a critical reading and review. Here also I try to give some practical aspects, how one could actually do the review of literature. So let us start with the session. All of us know that, or all of us agree that literature review is the most essential component of any research. And some researchers strongly consider it as a boring exercise. When students say it's very boring, sir, to review literature and all. But in my opinion, it is the most enriching and fascinating exercise. And it provides adequate background for the researcher to start their research. It is the time of review of literature, actually the researcher gets interested in research. And it is the time actually the researcher gets involved in the research. And he gets sometimes addicted to the research. So it's a crucial time. Because after registering for PhD, within 1 month or so, once the objectives and things are clear, this candidate, the student starts review of literature. So it's a crucial time. It's a crucial time. And it is in this time or at this time that actual research starts. A literature review simply means review of or survey of books, scholarly articles, reports, and other sources relevant to a particular issue or area of research. So when we start literature review, we should have a vague idea of what is our research topic. I mentioned vague idea because in the process we refine that idea. So therefore I mentioned vague idea. So we should have an idea about our research topic or particular research issue or research area. And keeping that in mind, we survey books, scholarly articles, reports, etc. This process is popularly known as literature review. So literature review provides a description, a summary, and a critical evaluation of the literature in relation to the research problem being investigated. It's not just surveying books, scholarly articles, and reports. It's much more. In review of literature, we describe certain phenomena, certain aspects through the literature. We write a summary of it, and also we do a critical evaluation of the existing literature in relation to the problem being investigated. So mainly the literature review is done to know whether the proposed research is going to make any contribution to the existing body of knowledge. See, in the process of research, a research scholar or a researcher is going to make some contribution to the existing body of knowledge. And the literature review helps the researcher to understand whether the proposed research is really going to make a contribution to the existing body of knowledge. And the literature reviews provide an overview of the sources we have gone through on a particular topic. Okay. See, at the end of the thesis, if somebody wants to know what are the sources through which this particular researcher has gone through, and It also helps us to tell our readers how our research work is different from others and what gap we are going to fill. So through review of literature, we are trying to convey to other researchers how our work is different from others and what gap we are going to fill. And we can say that it precisely tells where our study would stand in the group of existing studies. There are a lot of studies existing, and where our study is going to stand, what will be the position of our study, where is the place for our study amongst group of studies. That means we have to locate our position among the existing literature, or what gap we are going to fill. See, review of literature is not just only a search for the relevant literature in the given field. Some scholars think that it's just a search for the literature. It's not true. In fact, review of literature involves a critical evaluation of the given literature. So critically, we have to evaluate the existing literature and should come out something different than what they have presented. The review of literature has certain objectives. It has certain objectives. The first objective is that it surveys the existing literature. So first we have to have an idea of what all publications, what all research works existing in this area. And these things may be available in books, in scholarly research papers, in government reports, etc. So we have to have a survey of that. We have to have some idea about the availability of literature in the chosen field. Secondly, provide a critical analysis to the existing body of literature. That's very important. So we have to provide a critical analysis to the existing body of literature. That means we have to go through each paper, each work, and should examine that in a critical way and should highlight its merits and demerits and gaps. Okay. Thirdly, summarize and synthesize the huge volume of literature in the area. So I have mentioned in the last session that the review of literature chapter should be around 25 to 30 pages maximum. But we may find huge literature in the area, hundreds of papers, reports, books, and all. But how do we present that in 25 to 30 pages? Because we have to summarize and synthesize. Okay. We have to summarize all these papers. Synthesize means we have to see its connectedness, its order. So we have to find some pattern, some way of organizing it. Okay, that is the third objective. Then only we can make it very appealing. That summarizing and synthesizing is important. Fourth objective is to present the scattered literature in a readable and organized form. The literature is scattered. It's spread in various books, journals, and reports. We have to present that in a readable and organized form. Different papers must have followed different methods, different objectives, and different kinds of data, but we have to bring all this together, summarize it, synthesize it, and should produce like a capsule. Okay. And that should be in a readable form. It should be in a readable form. It should be like a capsule which solves all the problems or which covers all the aspects. Now, let us see the purpose of literature review. See, the first purpose is identifying the contribution of each work in understanding the research problem being studied. What does it mean? So we are trying to understand a research problem. Okay. And in the process of understanding that research problem, what is the contribution of each work? And how this particular work has helped to define this problem, to analyze this problem, and to make suggestions to find solutions to this problem. Second purpose is to describe the connectedness or relationship of each work with other works. We are not just reading one paper and leaving it. Or we are just reading one paper and noting down the points and putting it in the paper. No. We have to see the connectedness or relationship of each work with other works. If we find some works are not related or connected, better to exclude that. Otherwise, that will spoil the review of literature chapter. Or we should not take such works. So there must be some kind of connectedness, some kind of relationship with each paper that we are reviewing. And we are trying to extract that connectedness or relationship. Now, thirdly, interpret the prior research in the light of new developments in the research area. You know that research always an expanding area, developing area, and more researchers come. Social sciences and all, it's not very fast, but in sciences and all, chemistry and all, the research developments are very fast. So, review of literature helps us to interpret the prior research in the light of new developments in the research area, or to connect between the prior research and new research, and whether that research was relevant or not. All those things we can understand through review of literature. Reveal any gaps that exist in the literature. This is what commonly all of us know. That means if somebody asks us what is the purpose of review of literature, we would say that is to find gaps in the existing literature. It's true. That is the most important purpose of undertaking review of literature. Under review of literature chapter or in review of literature, we map the existing literature. We map the existing literature and see and look for the gaps. Okay. And our research is mainly to fill that gap. So it's not necessary just filling the gap. It can be extension also. We can extend the domain of research. Or we can find gaps in the existing literature and we can try to bridge that gap or fill that gap. And review of literature helps us to make an attempt to resolve conflicts of ideas in the previous studies or contradictions in the previous studies. Suppose there are conflicts of ideas. Suppose two groups of people or two groups of scientists are taking two different positions. Or there are contradictions in the previous studies. The review of literature chapter or the review of literature, what we do, can find a solution to that. We can suggest something so that contradictions are reduced or conflicts are reduced. Next one, that is also very important, to prevent duplication of research. See, we should not reinvent the wheel. We should not do the same research. Suppose somebody has already done the research, with same methodology, with same data. We should not repeat that again. How do we know that somebody has already done research? We have to do the review of existing literature. Unless we go through the existing literature, we wouldn't know whether somebody has already done that work. If somebody has done that work already, then no meaning we pursuing the same topic. When we propose certain topics, when the students come and propose certain topics, then guides or experts in the field say that, I think this has been studied by someone. And if they are expert in the field, they say that you see these papers, these 2-3 papers, they have looked at the same aspect. Since it's already been researched, why you want to do the same topic? Okay. So review of literature helps us in that. Next, it sets a stage for conducting additional research, because review of literature prepares us. Okay, review of literature helps us to set a stage for additional research. And review of literature locate our research work in the vast body of existing literature. There is already a lot of literature exists. Okay, then what we are doing? What is our contribution? So it helps us to locate our research in the vast body of existing literature. We can say that in this vast body of literature, I have a space here. I can be located here. Okay, there is space here. That we can tell if you do the review of literature. It continues. I mean, yeah. Now, the things that matters count in critical evaluation. See, I have mentioned to you that review of literature is not just survey of literature, it is critical evaluation of literature. So it's easy to say critical evaluation of literature. So we also tell our students that you don't just go through the literature, but you critically evaluate that. Even if we say like that, they don't do that properly because they don't know exactly what's meant by that critical evaluation. Okay, what are things they have to look for critically evaluating a literature or a research paper. So this slide would help you to understand what all things one should look while going through the literature in order to critically evaluate. First one is authenticity. You have to see whether the paper writer, the paper that you are going to see, the author has good credentials. Means whether that author, researcher is from a good institution, what are his qualifications, whether that research is authentic research, and whether that is published in good journal. All those things we have to see. Secondly, whether author's arguments are supported by evidence. Okay. Whether data support is there, or whether he has cited some other researchers in the field, or whether he has found out something which is convincing, then only we should accept that. Okay. If not, one should not vouch too much on such publications. Suppose there are no evidence, somebody is making some sweeping statements without being supported by data, or without being supported by opinions of other good researchers, then we should not rely on those publications. So in the critical evaluation, we have to mention that there are no supporting evidences to buy his argument. That is one criticism we can mention while reviewing the paper. Second is relevance of research questions, objective. See, most of the research papers mention the objectives of study. Or if it's not explicitly mentioned, but we can understand what are the objectives of the study. So while critically evaluating the paper, we can say that this paper is not relevant to the society, economy, or scientific community. That means its objective is not very relevant. It's already raised such objectives. And this objective is not contributing, not going to contribute anything to the society, anything to the community, or anything to the economy. So that criticism we can mention. The objective of the paper is not relevant. Another aspect which we can say is that, is it trying to bridge any research gap? We can say that this paper, though its analytical frame is good, data framework is good, it's not bridging any gap. It's not bridging any research gap. So that can be one criticism. Then another aspect is methodological appropriateness. Means whether the techniques used to identify, collect, and analyze the data appropriate to research problem under consideration. So we can criticize, or we can critically evaluate the paper in terms of methodological appropriateness. So we can say that the methodology used in this paper, in this study, is not appropriate given the nature or structure of data. Some other method would have been more appropriate than the method used by this researcher in this paper, that we can mention. We can also mention whether the sample size is appropriate or not. So while critically evaluating, we can say that the sample size is very small. Only 100 sample size collected. Given the population, that sample size is too small. The data collected may not have the normal distribution, and therefore the statistical properties may not be good. Okay, we can also critically evaluate the paper looking at the sampling procedure used. Suppose they have used 300 samples, but paper doesn't mention which sampling procedure they have used in their study. That means they did not use proper sampling procedure. They might have followed at their convenience some sampling methods, or they might not have used any sampling procedure only. So that way we can criticize. And we can also see whether methodology used is appropriate to data collected. Suppose some people collect ordinal data or nominal data and use some statistical techniques which are appropriate to analyze ordinal data. So that we can mention as criticism. And where the results properly reported and interpreted and right conclusions drawn. Sometimes they do data analysis, but interpretations may go wrong. And wrong conclusions may be drawn too. Okay, or conclusions may not be in the right direction. Making conclusion is an art, isn't it? From the same results, different conclusions can be drawn. That is skill of the researcher. So suppose this particular paper has come to a particular conclusion, you can say that this conclusion is not realistic, it's not convincing, this conclusion would have been better. Okay. Then this is continuation, okay? Objectivity of the author. Okay, whether the author is objective or biased. Whether some important data has been ignored to establish author's viewpoint. Okay, sometimes some authors may ignore some data to show that he's right, or to support some view, or to support some political party. Suppose that individual researcher wanted to show that the economic growth during the last 5 years has gone up, or this particular year has gone up. Under this political party's rule, the economic growth has gone up. Suppose he wanted to show that, I mean, he belongs to that political party's ideology. Then he can compare 2 years such that he takes this other point of time, a low growth time. If you take other point of time, a low growth time to compare the present time, then we can show higher growth. Okay. So that means he is not objective or he is biased. So such things we can bring to the notice. Then contribution made by the work, whether the work really helped in any significant way to a better understanding of the research area question. Finally, you can say that there is nothing new in this paper. The same thing is put in different way. The earlier papers have come to the same conclusion, but they put it differently. That's all. This paper that way is not meaningful. Not necessary always you say negative. Okay, here I mentioned in a negative way because we are critically examining. Critically examining, critically evaluating doesn't mean that we have to say negative. So we can also say that this work is a major contribution. This methodology is good, and he has made a great contribution. He's very objective. The data is good. Both ways we can look at it. Okay, critically evaluating means we are looking at in a critical angle. Okay, but whatever we say, we should be in a position to justify. I hope you got some idea of how to critically look at a paper. Now, certain important things that we have to keep in mind. Okay. Sources in your literature review should strictly related to the research problem. That means should not put any literature which are not related to your research problem. Okay, if you are studying about export competitiveness, we need to include only export competitiveness. You should not put some other thing, some other aspects, or any studies related to imports. Okay, so it should pertain to the research problem. Just to have more review of literature or more papers reviewed should not include unnecessary and relevant papers for reviewing. Secondly, take sufficient time to identify most relevant sources to use in the literature review. Don't do literature review hurriedly. See what are the different sources from which we can get literature. There are so many databases now, and we can go through that. Most of the journals have their own databases like Taylor and Francis, Elsevier, Sage. So some universities have subscription to all this. If you put your search, you get a lot of literature related to your research area. It lists based on the keywords, but you have to see whether that's relevant to you or not. Okay, then what is very pertinent to your area that you select, that you take. So if you go through many, you will get good ones, at least few. So take sufficient time to identify the most relevant sources to use in the literature. Critically examine all aspects of research design and analysis, then only accept another researcher's findings and interpretations as valid. So when you accept somebody's research results as valid, or when you cite this as a major finding of somebody else's study, see whether the research design and analysis of that paper is good or bad. Okay. Only if it is good one, then you take it as valid. And next, reports only synthesized results rather than reporting isolated statistical results. Synthesized results means what? There should be flow, there should be connection, there should be a synthesis of various words, which you are writing as if it's new. Okay. Should not be like just reviewing one paper you are taking and saying that this. Then another paper coming next, and that is not directly related to this. And like that, the 30-40 papers are there. These are all independent, no cohesion, no connection. Then that review of literature chapter won't be interesting to read. So reports only synthesized results rather than reporting isolated statistical results. Okay? That means try to connect with the earlier work and say that this is a contribution of this paper over the previous paper or some other paper. So some link, some connection we should try to establish. It should be like a story. I mean, there should be a proper flow. Also include contrary findings and alternate interpretations in the literature, rather than only reporting the research that validates assumptions. So you are going with some assumption and you want to establish that. It should not be like you include only those papers which supports your viewpoint. That's wrong. We should include the contrary findings and alternative interpretations also in the review of literature. So we should not be biased. Okay. It should not be to establish your own assumptions or your own viewpoints. We should consider other viewpoints also. See, certain other benefits, there are certain other benefits one can get from review of literature. Okay. This you may not put in the review of literature chapter, but these are the externalities or other benefits or takeaways from the review of literature. You can see how other researchers are organizing their ideas, how they are developing their ideas, how they are organizing their ideas, and how they are presenting it. It may help us to organize our ideas and research design. Okay. So how they developed their ideas, how they presented it, that we can understand from the review of literature. That we don't write anywhere. What methods they have used to study the problem? Is it possible for us to use similar methods? So while doing review of literature, you come across different methods. And whether same method we can use. Many researchers get idea of what method to use during the review of literature process only. Or we may use slightly modified method. It's the same method one can use with different data set. So that way it helps. And we come to know what theories have been used to understand their research problem. How they look for theories. What are the theories behind their research problem? How they try to incorporate that theories into their thesis or into their publication. Then you can think about what theories I can look for. Okay. So there are various theories, but we have to find a theory which is appropriate to our research problem under study. Okay. We can also see what sources they have cited to support their conclusions. What are their data sources? Can the same data source be used? If somebody is using data collected by National Sample Survey Organization. So when you go through their paper, you see this is the data set used. They cite, I mean, this is the data source. Immediately you can go to that data set and see whether data is available. They might have used on unemployment. They might have used or they might have collected unemployment data from NSS. But there are other types of data also available. For example, there may be consumption expenditure data, health expenditure data. But you are not using the same data that the other researchers have used, but other variables you are using, but you can find out data source. So can the same source be used? Like that, there is Center for Monitoring Indian Economy data sets. Can that be used? So that idea also you can get. Then another aspect is that have they used non-textual elements? Non-textual elements means whether they used graphs, diagrams, tables, etc. to illustrate key points. How they used it, how they have used it, how they presented their graph. See, some scholars use only pie diagram. It's not necessary. There are different types of graphs. So how they presented their data in graphs, diagrams, tables, etc. We can understand that we are not going to write anywhere in our thesis or in our publication, but we get idea. I mean, this is the way we can present. We may modify it, we may slightly change that, but it gives us some idea. Then how they have presented their research results. See, some might have presented in a very nice way. Some can present results such that they save a lot of space. The same thing they present in different way. Otherwise, it would take one full page. It may half page they may present.
So I think the video has stuck.
Neither his voice is coming.
Yes. Lichi ma'am, if you can call him.
Yeah. I think he left the meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, he left the meeting. I think he'll join back.
Yes. Mithilesh sir, is there a provision of pausing the recording right now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. YouTube live. Yeah, ma'am. It is paused, but ma'am, YouTube live will be there continuous, ma'am.
Okay. Lichi ma'am, are you calling him?
No, he's not picking up the phone.
Okay. Yes, Nuzat ma'am, actually, there's some technical issue at his end, the resource person's end.
What happens, sir? Okay. Yeah, sir, you have to join again then. I have already given to you, sir. This is your WhatsApp number. Nidhi, there is a power disruption at sir's place. Now it is restored. He is
Okay.
logging in again and then he will come back.
Okay.
Participants are requested to have patience and wait for another 5 minutes.
Yes, I think sir is there. Sir, you are on mute. Sudarshan sir, you are on mute.
And we are making him the co-host.
Yes,
So
yes.
just a minute. Sudarshan sir, you can unmute now.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now,
My slides are not seen here now.
yeah, you have to share it again.
Okay,
sir.
yeah, okay. Okay, 1 second. I think it's okay now.
Yes. Can we start now?
Yeah, sure.
Vinay
I'm
sir, can we
starting.
resume? Yeah. Yes. Yes, sir, please.
Now, next we are going to understand what is meant by gaps in literature or research gap. Okay. One of the major objectives of literature review is to identify the gap in the literature. Even in our topic title, it was given finding gaps in the literature. What does it mean? It means simply mapping the literature and find out the gaps so that researcher can do some work to fill the gap. Finding the research gap is with a purpose, right? What is the purpose? Because the researcher is going to fill that gap with some research work. So this gap could be gaps in research findings or the objectives that the researcher has dealt with, gaps in data used, and gaps in gaps in methodology used. Here, what I'm going to highlight is that most of the literature review ignore the gaps in data and methodology. After review of literature, researchers finally say that this study is not carried out in this particular state, or this study is not carried out in this particular context, or this objective is not dealt with, but they ignore the gap in the data and gap in the methodology. That's what I'm trying to highlight. Let us first see what's meant by gaps in objectives and research findings. So in this case, we try to find out the major gap in the findings and conclusions. Okay, I'll give one example. For example here, suppose your interest is to study the impact of migration on an economy. Suppose the interest of studies to study the impact of migration on Goan economy. Suppose we have studied, or some researchers have studied the impact of migration on employment. Some researchers have studied impact of migration on population growth. Some have studied impact of migration on health status, education, etc. But we could not find any study which looked at impact of migration on business. So that's a research gap. Many aspects of migration have been studied, but the impact of migration on local business is not being done. So that's a research gap. So our thesis or our work could be with that objective in mind. That means our research topic can be to study impact of migration on local business. We can think of many such examples, but I'm just giving one example to give some idea about how to look for research gap. This is research gap in objectives and research findings. But this is not the end of it. One could look for any problem. It's audible. Hello?
Yes, sir. Perfectly
Yes,
audible.
sir, perfect.
Okay. And gaps in data used. So this particular aspect we find many researchers are ignoring. So research gap can be in terms of data used. For example, suppose you have found studies that used data up to 2010. And suppose the data is available till 2020. Then that's a gap. So your research could be one which uses data till 2020. So that research gap can be filled. Okay. So one could do research using the latest data. And the review of literature chapter should highlight this. There is a missing link here. Data is not up to date. Secondly, suppose there are studies on employment using NSSO data. But these days, you know that CMI data is also available. That is Center for Monitoring Indian Economy data is also available. So this is a gap. So no studies exist using CMI data to study the unemployment scenario in the country. So that can be a research gap in data. Or we can also say that most of the studies exist in the country relating to employment or unemployment are secondary data and no primary data used. So gaps in data collection and methodology should also be highlighted. I mean, gaps in data collection methodology. Suppose collection methodology was not proper, that can also be highlighted. Then this is gap in methodology. This is gap in methodology. So same question can be addressed through different methodologies. So gap in methodologies used need to be highlighted in the review of literature. For example, to study the total factor productivity in economics, there are many advanced methodologies developed over the years. And data envelopment analysis is one among them. I'm just giving an example. So if we could not find studies which have used data envelopment analysis, that's a gap in methodology used. That can be highlighted in review of literature. So what I'm suggesting is that while we do review of literature, the scholars, the researchers should focus on not only gap in the objectives and research findings, but gap in data and methodology too. Now, presenting the review of literature. This is the important aspect of this presentation. How we are going to present the review of literature or the structure of the review of literature. Review of literature must have 3 sections. One is introduction. Second one is main body. Third one is conclusion, recommendations, and summary of the research gap. Very often we find that research scholars start abruptly with review of literature, reviewing the papers without any introduction. And we sometimes don't find any conclusion to the review of literature also. So this should be the structure that we should keep in mind: the introduction, main body, and conclusion. Then what all things should come in introduction? So introduction should introduce the central theme of the review. What is central theme of the review? What is the topic? The objective of the review of literature? How review is being organized? What all things are included in the review and what are not included in the review? This should be given in the introduction. So that introduction should give idea to the reader that these are the things going to happen. Then comes the main body. So main body is nothing but discussion or critical evaluation of various papers included in the review. So this can be done dividing the works under review into various themes or categories. And the themes or categories may be like this: the works that support a particular position, the works those are against that position, and works that are or those are providing alternate approaches. So we can divide that into 3 categories. It can be based on certain themes also. That aspect I'm going to deal with later. Okay. So one can also provide the details of how these works are similar or are different. Okay. Then comes conclusions. In conclusions, we have to give what we have found out or drawn from the review. What are the gaps, etc. So in the conclusions, we may mention which papers we have made or which papers have made the best arguments and most convincing opinions. So you can say that these are the papers which have supported this view, and these are the most convincing papers, or these are the papers which gave most convincing answers. And these are the papers which have made the greatest contribution to research area. Okay, or these papers have made contributions in terms of data and methodology. And finally, we have to see these are the gaps in the existing literature. Now, how we are organizing the literature review? How we are organizing the literature review? There are different ways of organizing literature review. One is chronological. Chronological means what? Under this, papers are reviewed according to their date of publication. So papers published in 1960s will give first, then 1970s, 1980s, like that. Chronologically, we present the paper. So the paper published first will appear first. Though it is easier to do like this, sometimes the themes get mixed up. Okay. Here the problem is that when we go chronologically, we are not looking at theme. So sometimes themes get mixed up. So that may cause some inconvenience to the researcher. But depending upon the topic under study, we can opt for chronological or some other methods. Suppose the development of ideas are over the years, systematically, then chronological method would be better. And it would be advisable to have subsections for each vital time periods. Okay. Though we are doing chronologically, suppose we are talking about, we are doing something, we are studying something related to economic reforms and all, then we can put time period till 1991. That can be one subsection, time period from 1991 to 2008. So 2008, you know, the crisis, global crisis happened. So that can be one period. 2009 to 2019 can be another period. So chronologically also we can classify into different periods and review. Now, next is thematic. Under this, we are doing reviews on the basis of theme around a topic or issue rather than chronologically. Even though we are doing thematically, here also the time factor comes into picture. Because within the theme, we may arrange or we may organize in terms of time. So suppose we take one particular theme. Within that theme, we can put literature or we can review literature chronologically. So in each theme, chronological order could be followed. It's also possible to have subtopics for each theme. See, for example, we are classifying the theme in 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, but it can be 2.2, 2.1.1, 1.2, like that we can have sub-themes also. So here also division of works under review into themes or categories may be in the form of works that support a particular position. Those are against, and those offering entirely a different or alternate approach. I'm going a little fast, otherwise we can't finish. So this is an example of how to present theme-wise. Okay. Suppose the topic of study is factors determining export competitiveness. The themes could be exchange rate and export competitiveness. That can be one theme. Second theme can be firm productivity and export competitiveness. Third theme can be trade agreements and export competitiveness. These themes can be selected or designed on the basis of the objectives of the study. Okay. Because on the basis of the objectives of the study, we are going to select the literature. And on the basis of objectives, these themes can be designed. Third one is methodological. In these types of review, the focus is neither on time nor on theme. Here, the focus is on methods that the various studies have followed in their research. In this case, the interest of the reviewers is not what others have said or what others have found out, but how did they arrive at that conclusion or that finding. That means here the interest of the reviewer is the methods used or methodology followed. And suppose the thesis is expected to provide a major methodological contribution to the existing body of knowledge. This method would be good. So if we examine the literature in a particular field, we find the developments. We find the development. For example, if you are studying poverty, measurement of poverty, there are different tools, techniques developed over the years. And suppose the researcher's objective is to provide a new tool, new methodology, or new index to measure poverty, then better review the literature in terms of methodological contributions made by various researchers over the years. So it can be chronological, it can be theme-wise, or it can be methodological. So some general guidelines. the interpretation of, I think this I'll skip. I mean, already I have mentioned these things in some other place. Now I'm going to show you some sample review of literature introduction. This is, suppose here, thesis title is Exchange Rate Volatility and Sectoral Trade of India. This is one of my PhD students' thesis only, topic only. Now, how we are putting the review of literature, okay? So I told you we are going to put that in 3 subheadings. One is introduction, second one is main body, and third one is conclusion. See here, this is introduction part. So this part I'm not reading out. This part shows the central theme of the review. So exchange rate can be considered as one of the widely used economic indicator which reflects the trade competitiveness. So this is the main theme. So I have given one paragraph. My student has given one paragraph about this in the introductory part. Okay. Then this is the topic. So as per theory, the exports are positively or negatively affected by exchange rate volatility. So previous empirical studies have shown something like this. And this is the actual research question in actual research problem that we are looking at. So that's given as a topic. Okay. Then this shows what we are doing. I mean, how we are organizing the literature. So present chapter classifies and discusses the literature based on 3 main themes, namely exchange rate volatility, exchange rate and trading partners, and exchange rate and sectoral trade. So these are the 3 ways we have arranged our literature so that we are mentioning. Then review lays on emphasis on studies on exchange rate volatility and impacts on different sectors. Though the literature in these areas are in general reviewed, the focus is on studies pertaining to India. That also we have to mention, what is our focus. And third aspect is what we are going to review and what we are not going to do. So this works. This only reviews, that word is missing. This only reviews works since 1991, or only works since 1991 is considered for review. That means the works before that we are not reviewing. This is the introduction we are giving for the review of literature. Then this is a sample for conclusion. Okay. So here in the conclusion part, summary and research gap, we are first giving summary of what we have done. Okay. So review of literature has been done on 3 main themes that we have to say. The objective of review was to identify that we have to say. Review was also intended to find the gap in the existing literature with respect to methodology, data, and findings. So that was our intention with respect to exchange rate trade relation in India. So summary of what we have done. And here, summary of what we have found in the reviews. So in this summary, we have to give all major papers and under 3 themes, what we have found out. I can't give that all details here. So I'm just giving you the idea. So what all actual reviews we have done and what we have found, we have to highlight major contributions of that under each category in a small paragraph. Then comes the gap in the existing literature. Okay. So I have mentioned here, these are the 3 points highlighted here. There are limited studies, especially on Indian context, that consider sector-wise analysis of trade with respect to exchange rate volatility. So this is one of the gap I am highlighting. Then there are other things mentioned. Then regarding methodology, employing ARDL bound testing approach to assess the long run and short run impact of exchange rate volatility on the sectors and commodities of trade in India. That is missing. There are only limited studies using this technology or this method. So trying to fill this gap. Then the third aspect is that from the literature, it can be observed that period of study is maximum up to 2012 only. The data used is 2012. So my study, we are using data up to 2018. Okay. So the gap in the existing literature is clearly mentioned. So this is very important because many times we don't see such things are mentioned in the review of literature chapter. So there must be an introduction, there must be body part, there must be a conclusion. This gives you some idea. It can't be like this always or everywhere. Now, this sample for main body, I mean, how we are reviewing the literature. Okay, this is a study by Purdy. So we start like this. Purdy 2003 investigates the impact of exchange rate volatility, like this we say, and this is the way we are saying. This is the way we are presenting it. I'm showing this after one slide in detail what all aspects we have looked at. This is another study we reviewed. Bhamani and Okose et al. 2020. It's also mentioned this is we reviewed like this. Okay. So here also we highlighted, though the study was published in 2014, the data used is only up to 2009. So inclusion of data of 1960s, 70s may not augur well for this study as most countries followed fixed exchange rate system. Like this, our own evaluation should be done. I'm showing that in the next slide. See the Purdy study that I'm going to dissect and show how I have put that literature in proper perspective. So first, we are giving the objective of the study. Okay. The same review of literature I have split into different parts to make participants aware how review is being done. So this is the objective of the study. Up to here, it is objective of the study. And from here to here, it is methodology. And from here to here, it is major findings. And from here to here, it's implications of the study. And the last one is my own critical comment. So my own critical comment is number of countries and number of commodities appear to be inadequate for such a study. That is my own opinion about the study. So these are the aspects one should cover. What was the objective of the study? What was the methodology used? What was the major findings? What were the implications? And on critical comment. The second one also the same way. This is the major theme of the study. Objective and major theme more or less same. And from here to here, it is data and methodology. And from here to here, major findings and conclusions. And from here to here, on assessment about the study. So these are the aspects we expect to include about each paper that we include in the review of literature. Here I have given only two papers. Okay. If we are doing more, then we can connect one with other, and we have to write, we have to synthesize and write. That I can't do here. So time is now 3:10, I think. So some time we have to give for questions and answers. So let me see, okay. Now I'll briefly show how to cite papers in the review of literature. Okay. There are different ways, okay. Some scholars always start with the name of the author. It's not necessary. Let us see different types of citations. I don't explain much. This is type 1. That means here, Singh, you put only surname. Sync 2014 stated that. This can be stated that, or investigated that, studied that, analyzed that. It can be anything. Okay, so this is one type. Now, if you are starting with same thing according to Sync, then we can put like this. Okay, bracket. It's more or less same. What I'm saying, it's not necessary that we should start. If you see some review of literature thesis, you see everything starting with like this. All paragraphs starting with the surname, year, like this. It's not necessary. We can put the same thing like this also. The economic liberalization, the main reason for increasing FDI in India, Sync 2014. So this way we can put. And sometimes 2-3 authors might have contributed or might have come to same conclusion. Then we need not review all the same finding. So we can put here Sync 2014, then Mukhopadhyay 2015, 2018. That means there are 2 papers of Mukhopadhyay, one in 2015 and one in 2018, and he has come to the same conclusion. Okay. Then another type is type 5. So here we are putting Sync 2014 and Mukhopadhyay 2015. 2015A and 2015B. That means in the same year he published 2 papers. If same year the same person has to publish 2 papers, then we have to put and B. Okay. Then type 6. This is only he has published 2 papers A and B. The same year means we have to put AB. So this is with respect to B. And you all must be knowing if there are more than 2 authors, then we have to put et al. And others. That's what it means. So here we have to put like this. Then here also Frank et al. 2004, 2016, 2018. So this Frank et al. Has 3 publications in 3 different years. So that we can put like this in the review of literature text. And this is about the same way. Different people are shown. All can be put it in one. If the same conclusion, we need not review again and again different papers. We can put the same conclusion and put different papers. Okay. It's more or less same. Now, internet as a source of literature, we know. I mean, I'm closing in 1 or 2 minutes. See, we know that there are a lot of literature available. Some good literature, some not good. So internet is good as a source of literature, but due to internet, you know that there are many predatory journals, many fake journals, clone journals, etc. are in the market. So when the review of literature is done, this is very, very crucial, very important. Review of literature is done while selecting articles, must say that these articles are published in good, authentic, reputed journals. It should not be in a predatory journal or clone journal, because predatory journal, clone journals means they don't do any peer review. They publish whatever they get, so that there may be misleading findings, misleading conclusions. And if we base our research to those misleading conclusions and findings, then our research will also go bad. Okay. So I was, it's over now. I was in a bit hurry. So, and also this is that the other one I presented before. So I have some control. This is first time I'm doing. So I don't have much control how much time it takes. Okay, I think it would help the participants some way, but they can go through it later. If they want, I can send this PPT also. So it's over. We have only 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, definitely, sir. And a lot of questions, compliments, and request for sharing the material is coming up. And for everyone's information, we will be having a YouTube link shared with all of you. The recording you can see. So that will help you in, revising whatever we have done. A lot of content was there. It was a loaded session, sir. but I'll quickly take up the
Yeah.
questions if it is okay with you.
Yeah,
Can we?
sure. Yeah.
Okay, so the first few questions are from previous session, sir. Reshmi
Yeah.
Pillai ma'am has asked, sir, when we make one objective into core chapter, what are the things we can put so that we get a chapter of 25 to 30 pages?
One objective into 4 chapters.
No, core chapters, you said, no? Each objective.
No.
Yeah.
No. What I mentioned, one objective, 1 chapter.
Yes,
3
yes.
objectives, 3 chapters I mentioned.
Yes. So that's
what was
her question is, okay, how to make it 25 to 30 pages and what should be included in that?
Yeah, see, that depends on what kind of analysis you are doing. So because you have a research question, you have an objective. To fulfill that objective, we have to do some analysis, right? We have to do some data analysis. So first, maybe 3-4 pages will go on what methodology we are using, right? Then after methodology, there will be results, right? All these results will come in tables. I don't know, madam is from which subject? Is that madam? No idea. Okay. So if it is in economics, we'll be doing some statistical analysis. There will be 7-8 tables, and each table will have a discussion of 1 or 2 pages. Therefore, I mentioned don't just put tables. We have to discuss that table and relate that to existing findings, discuss that. Okay. Then some findings, some summary will come. Okay. See, 1 chapter is a major objective. So they should explain the model. What model they are using, what equations they are using, and what results they are getting. So we all present that in tables. In chapter, maybe 10-15 tables will be there. And all those tables will be discussed. Like that, it comes around to 25 pages. Okay.
Okay. So next question is from Mr. Lawrence. How different is conceptual framework from theoretical framework?
It's more or less the same in my opinion, because conceptual framework provides what are the basic concepts that we are using, and this theoretical frame is slightly broader than that. Conceptual frame means various concepts that we discuss in the thesis while writing the thesis, or what are the tools in the subject area we are using. Theoretical frame means a particular theory that we are using. For example, when we work on regional trade agreements, there is a theory by name trade creation, trade diversion. Okay, that is maybe those 2 are 2 concepts that we are using: trade creation, trade diversion. But that theory as such, how trade is created, how trade is diversed, that model itself will form the theoretical frame. I don't know whether I answered him correctly.
Yes, sir. Got it.
So whatever I can later send them also details. Okay.
Okay. Another question is how to keep the document of data collected through the questionnaire or interview method.
I didn't get.
How to keep the document of data collected through the questionnaire or interview method.
No, what we do.
I'm not very clear.
The interview method means it's qualitative data.
Yeah.
So that they have to keep as it is in written form, or many people get it recorded while they interview. And other quantitative data means we once we collect data, we put that in Excel, right? We enter data in Excel software, because from Excel we can take to any other software, Reviews or Gretel or whatever. So quantitative data one can store in Excel. Yes. And qualitative data can be, these days students are recording. When they interview person, they are recording. Otherwise, they have to write and keep whatever they are saying. Qualitative interview means it's open-ended. Different people have different answers to a particular issue.
Okay, just 1 minute. Yeah, the question is related to review of literature now. Review of literature is summary evaluation. Okay,
Yeah.
sir. But examples, I think you have given a lot of examples already. Now,
Yeah.
towards the end, he must have got the answer. Subhash sir must have got the answer.
Okay, I mean, some examples I have given that will be useful, I think, because we don't get such examples in the textbook and all. I mean, so maybe if it's from economics, it would be more helpful because then that terms and other things would be helpful. Therefore, I thought I would give some examples. I know because many things we discuss, but we don't get exactly what to write. So he can go through the examples given to me. Okay.
Yes. Okay, and Jyoti ma'am has asked, can we use same title of specific topic, which was already published by some researcher?
No, that won't be appropriate. No. I mean, if somebody has already used, we can slightly modify that same topic. We should not use because when now these days Google search and all they find the same thing. No, I mean same keyword we use. So better to use different title and slight modification at least. Some different words or some. I mean at least changing the order of the words would be better. That's my opinion.
She has also asked, sometimes we find it difficult to get article related to specific topic. Is there any source from where we can easily get the article for the same?
No, see, there are now some databases I mentioned. See, suppose I have one thing called Mendeley. In Mendeley, if you type the keywords, it lists all the articles in that area published from good journals. Then we can pick up which is required by us, which see some area. See what happens. Most of the search engines are searching for articles which are online and are available in good journals. Suppose we are studying something very local. There may not be many publications in that area, which has already been published in journals. There may be reports, theses, and all. So when we search, we may not get enough number. I mean, if it is very much localized, unless somebody publishes, the search engines can't pick up that and bring to us. See, for example, if you put the financial inclusion, you get so many things. But suppose you put something related to, so I have read one thesis on Kolhapuri chapels. Suppose we put that search, we may not get anything because might not have published much on that area. Okay.
Yes, sir. Next is it okay to use a mix of all these types of citations, the citations which you have mentioned?
Sure, certainly.
Or should we follow only one?
No. All. I mean, depending upon the situation, all. I mean, all should be used in different styles. These are different ways of presenting. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry if it is misunderstood because it's a different ways of presenting.
Okay.
Different ways. It looks better so that it should not follow monotonous style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then Sahana ma'am has asked, can we arrange or categorize the ROL based on source from where review has been done, like thesis, research paper, newspaper article separately, etc.?
I don't recommend that. I mean, my personal view, may not be good. I mean, it's not good because it won't help us to synthesize. The purpose of review of literature is to synthesize different articles, bring into some form. So this may not help us. So I don't support that view. Because you know that research, there is no hard and fast rule. If I say this, somebody can argue that is better. So my opinion, it's not good.
Okay. So it should be thematic or the 4 ways you have suggested to arrange. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 ways. I mean, chronological, thematic, and methodological.
Yeah.
So that helps to synthesize. That is the purpose. We can have a connectedness.
Yes. I don't see any more questions. There are compliments and demand for YouTube link. And
yeah.
I think now we can wind up our session.
Yeah, perfect timing. Now, 3:30.
Yes.
3:30. Correct.
I
Sir,
think so.
actually, it was a wonderful session, and this session has given us so much important insight on review of literature, its purpose, process, precautions, critical evaluation, and I mean, understanding the particular literature, and what is the utility of review of literature. So before I count on everything which we have discussed, I would like to invite Mrs. Sahana Ravi Prasad. She is our research cell in charge and of our institution and coordinator of BBI and BAF program to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Before that, I thank you all for inviting me and also well organized. Everything started on time. I thought it may get delayed for 5 minutes or so, but it's all correct timing. Good organization.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you
I
so
mean,
much for your time,
yeah,
sir. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. And thanks to all participants for their presence and active participation means we don't have much time also to ask each one and all. Okay, over to you. Yeah.
Yes. Sahana ma'am, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Nidhi ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, I would like to extend my gratitude to our today's resource person, Professor P.K. Sudarshan, Dean of Research, Goa Business School, for devoting his valuable time and to make our participants understand in detail, starting from the relevance of apt title for the thesis, till the importance of review of literature and what are the various ways of presenting the review of literature, identifying the gaps, etc. Thank you, sir, for the elaborate and wonderful session. A big thanks to our benevolent management and our principal, sir, Dr. Sridhara Shetty, for giving the opportunity and encouragement to conduct this 10 days research methodology workshop. Thank you to our Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Liji Santosh, and Vice Principal, Professor Sandesha Shetty. Thank you, Nidhi ma'am and her technical team for handling today's session. And last but not the least, all active participants for your patience and energetic listening. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I request all the participants, please make sure that they have filled the attendance form before they leave the meeting. Attendance form has been shared in the chat box.
Recording can be stopped, and thank you so much, sir. It was really wonderful to have you.
Yeah.
Lot of justice.
Yeah. Thank you.
The
This
topic
college
is
is in Powai, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's very close to IIT. So
Yeah.
Yes.